Welcome to History of the Spanish Flu. Every year, around winter, the flu comes around. This is known as flu season. The flu mainly attacks the respiratory system, being airborne. Usually it is fairly harmless with a death rate of less than 0.1%, but it still manages to kill between 250,000 and 500,000 people a year globally. However, occasionally a mutation in the influenza virus brings around something much worse. In early March 1918, towards the end of World War I, officials in the Kansas county of Haskell sent a report to the government notifying them of 18 flu cases of a severe type. By May, reports of a worrying influenza strain were coming in from Europe. In Spain, being a neutral country, freedom of the press allowed newspapers to report the flu, causing it to be called the Spanish flu. It had been brought there by American soldiers going to fight in World War I. The first wave of the flu wasn't that deadly and most people recovered, earning it the nickname the 3-day fever. The symptoms were typical of seasonal flu: chills, fever, and fatigue. Within 2 months, flu had spread from civilians infected by the military to the entire world. However, in August, a highly contagious, lethal strain appeared in Brest, France, Freetown, Sierra Leone, and the docks of Boston. Spanish flu spread so quickly that the hospitals swiftly filled up. Soon after, tent hospitals were set up in public parks. Shortages of medical staff caused by the war only increased worries. Victims of Spanish flu died within hours or days of first symptoms showing, which were headaches, blue skin from oxygen deprivation, extreme tiredness, and fever. Later on, bacterial infections occurred and killed the patient via pneumonia. If that didn't happen, patients bled from the nose and mouth, coughing violently, followed by death. A person could wake up feeling healthy but be dead by sundown. The crammed, dirty trenches of World War I only helped in spreading the Spanish flu amongst soldiers. In the US, spitting was banned in public. Schools, churches, and theaters were closed. One city banned handshaking. The Red Cross was so short of nurses that it asked local businesses to let workers have a day off if they worked in hospitals at night. Medical students had to help. Face masks were distributed. In 1 month alone, October 1918, 195,000 died. Philadelphia had all of its 31 hospitals filled within 3 days of a parade which helped spread the virus. By the end of the pandemic, the United States lost more than 675,000 people and the average life expectancy dropped by a decade. Armistice Day, November 11, 1918, only made conditions worse. As soldiers returned home from the front, they brought flu along with them, infecting loved ones. The same was the case vice versa. Celebrations and parties helped infect more people. News agencies, tired of covering death and destruction during the war, were hesitant to talk about this new microscopic threat. In London, nearly a third of the police force reported absent due to Spanish flu. Coffins that had been stockpiled during the war were soon in short supply. Family members had to help dig graves of their relatives. By the end of the year, Spanish flu had reached nearly every country. In India alone, between 10 and 25 million people were dead in 8 months. It killed so quickly that trains could arrive in stations filled with dead and dying passengers. The disease even managed to get to the Pacific Islands, where it took a large toll, especially on native populations. In Western Samoa, 22% of the population died. There was little doctors could do. Many mistook Spanish flu for a bacteria when it was really a virus. Either way, no treatment was available. People bought local remedies, hoping they would stop the flu. In reality, these did little to nothing to stop the disease. The face masks that many wore were useless against the tiny viruses which flooded through the mesh. Some doctors, out of sheer desperation, injected patients with every known vaccine at the time, knowing full well that they would have no effect on influenza. Fortunately, by early 1919, the flu was receding. By 1920, Spanish flu had all but disappeared. Spanish flu killed some 20 to 50 million, having infected around 500 million, and killed more people than World War I. One of the most interesting aspects of this deadly pandemic was that mortality rates among young, healthy people were so high. Spanish flu triggered a cytokine storm, where the immune system over-releases proteins called cytokines, which cause blood pressure to drop and making blood clot when it shouldn't and not clot when it should, and inflammation. Young, healthy people had stronger immune systems, causing the overreaction to be stronger, and thus increasing the likelihood they would die. On the other hand, children and the elderly had lower death rates from the flu because the virus triggered a weaker cytokine storm in their weaker immune systems. The immune system also attacked infected cells in the lungs, causing fluids to leak in, effectively drowning the victim. When autopsies were conducted on victims of Spanish flu, the lung damage caused by the virus was comparable to pneumonic plague, a more contagious form of bubonic plague. The much less deadly swine flu may be distantly related to Spanish flu, as both are caused by the H1N1 virus. It wasn't until 1945 that an effective flu vaccine became available to the public. It was invented by Dr. Jonas Salk and Thomas Francis in the United States. However, the flu virus mutates rapidly, and a vaccine which worked the previous year may not always work the next, which is why a new flu vaccine is released every year. So get the flu shot. It provides the best chance of protection against this rapidly evolving disease.